You can have a culture by design or a culture by default. You actually get to decide, and leaders animate culture. Welcome to Chasing Greatness. We've been talking with Mark Miller, my friend, author of the new book, Culture Rules. We're excited that you've joined us for another episode. It's been a great few days, Mark. You've been so generous with your time. We're so grateful for that. We've unpacked all this, that idea of leaders animating culture, the people who are listening. I hope your cultures are getting better. He's been giving us tools, these rules actually, things that have to be in place. We have to aspire, like what kind of culture we want, those hopes and dreams. Everybody's got to be on the same page, saying the same thing. We've got to amplify it, make it loud. I loved your Alexander the Great story, going over the wall. If you missed any of these episodes, go check them out. It's been gold this week. And then we have to adapt. If we're going to have a great high-performance culture, ultimately we're going to have to adapt all the time. And then we had some toxins you unpacked for us. It's so great. Some things we can do. I love the You Control the Valve. Again, go check this out if you missed it. These things are on YouTube. If you're listening on audio, if you want to lock these things in with your team, maybe on the screen, unpack some of these conversations that Mark and I've had this week, that'd be great. You can do that on our YouTube channel. Mark, all that sounds great. Thanks for being with us for one more episode here. But I've been thinking about this. This still feels like this could be hard. And if I'm not careful, there are a lot of people listening who are exhausted. They're tired. This feels like it's daunting. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think I'd say a couple things about that. It is hard. So we wanted to simplify it.
Right.
But not to sugarcoat it. Right. This is real work, but it's the most important work that a leader can do. Culture is the primary driver of performance. So here, I told a CEO recently who told me that the stuff I talk about sounds hard. I said, you signed up for a hard job. Yeah. And it's not just CEOs. I would argue that men and women who have stepped into leadership have stepped into a hard job. Now, I hope they have tremendous amounts of satisfaction, even joy in that work. But make no mistake, there are easier ways to make a living than being a leader. So I just want to own that. And I want to encourage the folks that are watching this or listening to this. We're trying to simplify it. We're not trying to sugarcoat it.
Yeah, and let me kind of pause you there and just say I would believe that it's actually harder to not do this than it is to do what we're talking about. Like there are a lot of people carrying hard right now that are not putting any time on this. We've talked about that all week. Right. So
if they work on their culture, their job will actually get easier.
It gets easier,
which is crazy because I've actually had leaders almost apologetically come to me over the years when they've worked on their culture diligently and seen improvements about how much easier their job is. So I think it's the ultimate win-win. Do something hard and get lots of payoff.
Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, I was kind of, giving a little preview of some of this as I talked about some of the stuff that we've actually talked about here. And you mentioned earlier this week the Navy SEALs, and they're in a war, a battle, whatever. We're not in a literal war here, but I use the language when I talked about it. We actually are in a fist fight. There's a fist fight every day, and how do they stay in that game like that? That endurance feels really important here.
Yeah, it is important. So one of the stories that we use, it's actually the last chapter in the book, is about Ernest Shackleton. And for some of your audience, they will know that name. He was the Antarctic explorer who in 1914 set out on his third expedition. The first two had been failed efforts to reach the pole. He wanted to be first. But he missed that opportunity. And so in 1914, he said, well, I know what I'll do. I'll just be the first guy to walk across the continent. And the plan was he would take a ship to one side, there'd be another ship that go to the other side, and he would literally walk across the continent to meet the ship on the other side. Unfortunately, we'll never know if that would have worked because his ship was seized by the ice. And it was 497 days before they were able to make it back to dry land, and that was not where they wanted to be. That was still 800 miles from any human beings. And so he and some of his men got in a lifeboat and navigated the more than 800 miles across Drake Passage through at least one, if not two hurricanes to get to safety. And then 128 days later, they make it back to rescue the folks on the island. Now, the reason I didn't do that justice. You can even imagine that story. But I tell you that story for a couple of reasons. One is Shackleton was keenly aware of culture. If you read the historical record, he recruited men to a set of values that he felt they would need to be good explorers.
Yeah.
He built a culture by design. Again, the historical record is fascinating.
It's incredible, yeah.
So I'd encourage you to look up Ernest Shackleton. There's so much you can learn. But the other reason I tell you is much more superficial. The name of his ship was Endurance. In fact, that was his family motto.
Yeah.
If you're going to do culture by design, if you're going to create something transcendently great, you're going to need endurance.
That's so good. That's so good. It's gold, Mark. Thank you so much. Okay, so Culture Rules. We got the book. It's out. It's full of great stuff here. I encourage you to do it. Leadeveryday.com, I think, is the place. Mark, if they get 11 copies, I think you said you're going to do a Zoom call with their team. About 500 copies, you're going to come and do a keynote for their business, their organization, whatever, all kind of stuff. Go to leadeveryday.com. And I'm also excited, we haven't really mentioned this week, but you and I, Mark, have written a field guide together that actually will help you animate your culture. It's full of all kind of activation ideas and tips and tactics and case studies. A lot of cool stuff there. You can get that at leadeveryday.com, as well as the Culture Rules Quick Start Guide. All kind of meeting notes, great stuff. If we can help your organization, let us know. You can reach out to us through chasinggreatness.tv. We're real excited about that. So before we go, Mark, we've had you. You've been so great with your time this week. Thank you for that. Before we let you go, is there a final word you would give to us as it relates to Culture Rules? Like, what would you say?
Yeah.
Drop the mic here.
Well,
what you got?
Thanks for that opportunity, because I mentioned that Shackleton is the last chapter. But then I was given the opportunity to write the epilogue. And I thought, because I think the Shackleton story is kind of like,
Pretty cool, yeah.
it's pretty good. But I said, what is the final word? And so I became aware of a novel by Ernest Cline called Ready Player One. Some people have read it. Others saw the movie. Steven Spielberg made a movie called Ready Player One. And so for those that don't know the storyline, I won't give it all away, but story takes place in two realities, the real world and a virtual world. And our hero, Wade Watts, obviously lives in both worlds.
Okay.
In the virtual world, he's taken on the persona and the character of Parzival, the mythical knight of the Round Table who was searching for the Holy Grail. So online, he's looking for this prize that will make things right in the virtual world and in the real world.
Okay.
So I won't give away too much of the story, but I wanted you to have that context. So here's the line that just captivated my spirit as I went through that. He said, people go to the oasis, the virtual world, because of what they can do there. And they stay because of who they can become. And I thought, what if we built cultures and we built organizations that were so attractive, people would come there because of what they could do. They could get a job, but that they would stay there because of who they could become. To me, that's my hope, prayer, and aspiration for all of the organizations in the world, that they build something so compelling that people will come because of what they can do, and they will stay because of who they can become.
That's so great. That's so great. I'm so grateful that you have spent time with us this week. I mean, you marked my life so much. I'm truly grateful for that. All of you who listen, that's the great Mark Miller with just pearls there at the end. And how amazing would it be if you built a culture, as Mark said, that would position you to dominate whatever it is you're trying to do. Really, you could go after greatness because you had such a great culture. And even there at the end, a little hint of you become the employer of choice at that point, because word gets out when you build that kind of culture. I hope you'll continue to do that as you chase greatness, not just in your personal life, not just in your family life, but at work. It really would go and you would lead a business, an organization, a team, whatever it is you got going on, you would lead that in such a way that the people around you really would benefit together as you build that high-performance culture. All right, we love you guys. We'll be back next week for all new content. Thanks for joining us here on Chasing Greatness.